that I love about student ministry is seasons. And y'all know this, if you've been around for a while, I love seasons. I love coming into new seasons, going from fall to winter, winter to spring, spring to summer, and what that brings with it. And right now, we're in a new season. We're getting ready to go into the fall, but we are first and foremost entering into a new season with school. And when I was in school, high school, maybe a little bit of middle school, but high school and especially college, I started processing these ideas of, hey, why is this here? Like, what's the point? Like, it didn't matter what it was. It could be like the shelf that's underneath those chairs. Like, why is it there? Oh, it's so you can put Bibles, different things like that. Everything that I wanted to know, like, I wanted to know why it was there. Like, what's the point? Is there value? Do we need this? So since we're getting into school, one of the things that I process a lot is there really a need for homework? Now, hear me out, because we sometimes look at homework and it's negative, it's we don't want to do it, maybe it's a chore, maybe it stresses our life out, but we also have to know, when we're thinking through this, like, why does this exist? Is there value? Why do we need this? So if we do that and we think about homework, we know that homework teaches us lessons beyond what gets taught in the classroom, right? When you bring work home, you complete it on time, you turn it in at the appropriate time, it teaches you how to prioritize your time. It's life skills, right? It's teaching you how to manage your time, how to be responsible, how to be organized, how maybe to prioritize your time so you can get the right things done. So there are life lessons being taught by homework, but most of the time we think, hey, this teacher's just giving this for busy work. Like, we're like, there's no point in this. So if we're going to ask that question, I used to ask that question about two-a-days. Anybody do two-a-days in football, volleyball, anything like that? Yeah, like two-a-days is one of those things where you come to practice not once, but twice. I don't know if you know this, but that's why they call it two-a-days. Piper, did you know that? You did know that? Oh, Piper, I'm so proud of you. Look, it's big brain right there, right? Like, you come to practice once, and then you come back a second time, you go to practice again. Like, just keep me there, right? Like, why send me home and get my hopes up that I'm going to be able to, like, take a nap and take a shower and not stink, right? But I got to come back. And so I'm like, what's the purpose of two-a-days? Well, two-a-days teaches you how to push through when you're tired. Like, right, you get to the second practice, you're already tired, you're already frustrated, you're already sore, maybe you're already hurting, but you learn how to push through being tired and hurting. It also builds team dynamics. It builds trust with the person maybe who's standing next to you on that field. You've went through something. You've gone through something that was difficult, and now you're able to say, hey, we made it through that. Now we can make it through the game. Some of you may not relate to that. You may relate to when I was in band. And I'm going to tell y'all, and many of you can relate to this, I hated practicing music. Anybody else? Yeah, right? Like, now here's the thing. I do a lot of what I do musically by ear. My older sister took piano lessons, and she would sit and, like, practice for like 3 hours. And when I heard what she played, I would sit down at the piano, and I would play what she played. And she would get so mad at me because I couldn't read the music. Like, I couldn't read what was on the sheet. I could just hear what she played and then play it. But when I got into high school, middle school, into college, and, like, I needed to learn how to play something, I didn't understand. But you know, if you've done that, that practice helps you learn and grow. Maybe you're a brass instrument player, and you get your chops, right? Like, you get your chops all tight. I don't know, what's the term? Yates? What do you do with chops? Taught? You taught your chops? You train. Okay, we're training chops. But we learn how to build up the muscles in our mouth, or maybe you're a stringed instrument that plays your fingers and you get those calluses on your fingers, right? Like you learn to build up physically the ability to endure and play something over and over and over again, right? But that's what when I sit and process those things, like, I'm thinking through everything in life. What's the value? What's the purpose? Why do we do this? And so as we get into a new school year and we're getting into this idea of being able to jump into a a new school year, a new rhythm, a new routine of coming on Wednesday nights here and Sunday nights for small groups and adventure nights and all of the things that we do throughout the week and the month, when I think about that, I have to ask myself this question. Why do we have student ministry? Like, why do we do what we do? Why do we gather how we do? What is the purpose behind it? Because if we understand the purpose, we have value in what we're doing, right? When you see the value, we begin to engage in it. Like, we're not just a casual attender. We go, no, I can't wait to be there. I can't wait to invite a friend. I can't wait until the next time that we're getting together or I'm going to reach out to a friend. We begin at that point to invest in others, right? We invest an invite, and we say, hey, I want you to come to youth with me tonight. Many of you are very good at that. You bring friends with you on a regular basis. And that only happens because you have buy-in and value in why we do what we do. You see, there's power in seeing the value. So I want to talk tonight real quickly about the value of student ministry for your life. In order to do that, we're going to look at a passage in Luke chapter 2. So if you'll reach underneath the chair in front of you or the chair behind you, we've got our gray Bibles out. You can grab one of those. We're going to turn to Luke chapter 2. Whoever finds it first, let us know what page it's on. 732? Nate says it's on page 732. Page 732 in the gray Bibles. Luke chapter 2, verse 41. Luke chapter 2, verse 41 on page 700 and, what'd you say, 32? Page 732. You there? All right, let's read along. Everybody read along with me. Here it is, Luke chapter 2, starting at verse 41, says this. Now his parents, who are they talking about? Jesus. It's a great answer to throw out when you're in church, right? That's always the answer. Just say Jesus. Sometimes you'll be wrong, but most of the times you'll be right. Like Jesus, we're about to read a story about his life. Now his, meaning Jesus, parents went to Jerusalem every year at the feast of the Passover. And when he was 12, how old is he? 12. Anybody 12 in the room? Yates? Yeah, Emily? Got some 12-year-olds? Okay. Think about this. Yates, I want you to think about this. This story could be about you. It's about Jesus, but it could be about you. All right, here we go. He's 12 years old. His parents are going up for the feast of the Passover. It says this. They went up according to their custom. Verse 43. And when the feast was ended and they were returning, the boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem. His parents did not know. But supposing him to be with the group or in the group, they went a day's journey. Now, how many of you have ever been lost by your parents? Now, that doesn't mean you have bad parents. It just means that sometimes they need some space from you, Luke. Right. Like it's not unusual for you to be walking in a store and to be, hey, I got lost from my parents. How many of you, be honest, Cooper, I think the story's about you. How many of you have been honest that you had to go to the store and they had to do the, would Cooper's parents please come to the front desk? Anybody? Anybody, right? Cooper, has that actually happened to you? Once? Nice, right? Like, it's not unusual for parents to lose track of their kids. However, Yates, it's a little unusual for them to lose them for an entire day, right? Like, it took them a day to realize that Jesus is not here. Now, in fairness to Mary and Joseph, they're traveling in a big group, you know. They're all traveling together. Maybe all the kids are, like, playing Kick the Rock back over here behind, and they're like, yeah, hey, Jesus is back there somewhere, right? So in fairness, it's not like they were absentee parents, right? However, this is the Son of God. Like, there was a prophecy. The angel came to tell Mary, like, hey, this guy's important. Don't lose him. And what did they do? They lost him. So verse 44, supposing him to be in the group, they went a day's journey. But when they began to search for him among their relatives and acquaintances, and when they did not find him, they returned to Jerusalem. So they've already walked a day. So how long does it take them to walk back? Another day, right? So Jesus is gone for 2 days now, right? And so they're walking back to Jerusalem. They may be on donkeys. They could be driving a donkey, right? They go back to Jerusalem to search for him. Verse 46, After 3 days, how many days? 3 days. They find Jesus in the temple, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. And all who heard him, talking about Jesus, were amazed at his understanding and his answers. And when his parents saw him, they were astonished. And his mother said to him, "Son, why have you treated us so?" How many of you, your mom or dad, when they got mad at you because they couldn't find you, that they blamed you, why would you do this to me? Right? So Mary's the same way. She's like, Jesus, why would you treat us this way? Behold, your father and I have been searching in great distress. Yeah, 3 days you can't find the Son of God. That's kind of distressful, right? Verse 49, and he said to them, now think about this, calm, cool, collective, 12-year-old Jesus. And he said to them, why were you looking for me? Did you not know that I must be in my Father's house? Right? That's how you had to know that Jesus was different, right? Let's pretend you're 12 years old and you've been missing for 3 days and you're like, hey, why are you looking for me? I'm at church. I've been at church the last 3 days learning and growing, right? I would not be that. As a 12-year-old, I definitely would. How many of you would be that? Right, none of us. Jesus is different. And then it says this, and where are we? Verse 50. And they did not understand the saying that he spoke to them, and he went down with them and came to Nazareth and was submissive to them. And his mother treasured up all these things in her heart. Now, verse 52 is where I want to really focus on tonight. Look at this, verse 52. And Jesus increased in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God and man. Now, if I ask the question, why do we have student ministry? I want to go and I want to look at the Bible and understand, okay, what does the Bible say about student ministry? And what does the Bible say about how Jesus may have interacted with student ministry? And I want you to know that Luke chapter 2, verse 52 is the only verse in Scripture that talks about Jesus being in student ministry. Because if you keep reading on, the very next verse, Jesus is old. He's an adult and he's about to start his ministry. He's about to start doing all these miracles. The time from when he's 12 to when he's 30, we get one verse. And Jesus increased in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man. So if I think about student ministry and why we do student ministry, I have to understand that verse has to be important. If they didn't include anything else about these years between 12 and probably 30 in Jesus' life, this verse has to mean something. There's got to be value in it. So I look at that and go, okay, how did Jesus respond to his teenage years? Well, it says Jesus grew in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God and man. So there's 4 things right there, right? He grew in wisdom. He got big brain like Piper, right? He got smarter. He got more wise. He began to soak in. What did he do when he was in the temple, right? The teachers were out there teaching, and he was listening to the teachers, and then he was asking them questions because he wanted to know more, right? He wanted to gain knowledge and be able to apply that knowledge to what we call wisdom, right? And so he grew in wisdom. He got smarter. He got big brain, but he also grew in stature. What does that mean? He got bigger. He got taller. He got muscles, right? Think about this from a time that you're 12, and then you start growing up, and we know that Jesus was a carpenter like his stepdad, Joseph, and we know that he probably did a lot of physical labor, so he probably was ripped, right? He was probably very strong. He was able-bodied. He grew in wisdom, but he also grew up. He got bigger. He got taller. Maybe he got some gray in his beard and in his hair, right? He grew up in those years from 12 to 30, right? So he got wisdom, he got stature, but then it says 2 other things, that he grew in favor with 2 groups of people. One is God. He grew in favor with God. He grew in favor with God because he spent time with God. And you're like, yeah, that's not really fair because he's talking to himself, God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. He's spending community time with God the Father. But we understand that in order to grow in favor with God, he had to spend time with him, right? He had to spend time with God the Father in prayer. And we know that prayer was important to Jesus. We see that later on in his life, that he regularly would exclude himself, to isolate himself, to go pray, to have that intimate time with God the Father. And so he grew in favor with God, but he also grew in favor with man, with people, with his community. And you think about that, how did that happen? How did Jesus grow in favor with his community? He did that because probably he was a nice person. He probably loved people well. He probably spoke encouragement into others. He probably looked for ways to go, hey, how can I help you with that? Like, he probably invested himself in his community so that people would go, hey, there's something different about this Jesus guy. Hey, let's invite Jesus. Hey, dove Mary and Martha and say Jesus. No, sorry, that was a bad illustration. Don't dove him. Let's walk over to his house and invite Jesus and Mary and Joseph over for dinner. Like, he was a nice guy. He engaged with his community. He loved people well. And so he grew in favor with God and with man. And so why do we do student ministry is because we want those 4 things to be applicable to your life. But what sets you apart? Like, why do we have student ministry in the whole life of the church? In everything that we do, we've got, I don't know if you saw him today, but our lead pastor, Ryan Smallwood's in the back with us today. His whole job is to help us as a church move forward in the vision that God has given us, to help us grow, to love people well, to love God well, right? Like, we do that through worshiping, through being in community, to being out in mission and doing things with other people. But why do we have this thing that's separated for you guys? That's separated out from what we do on Sunday mornings and what we do with our mission trips for the adults and what we do for the children's ministry. What separates you from that? Well, in about the 1900s, maybe a little bit early depending on who you listen to, but about 1903, psychologists started using a word called adolescence. Anybody ever heard that word? So adolescence is a term that really just talks about this transition period from being a child to being an adult. Now, before this, there was really just kind of a, hey, you're a child until you turn 16, 18, you go off, you get a wife, you get a husband, you start having kids, and then you're an adult, right? Like, there was just kind of this, you're a child one day, and then, like in our society, you turn 18, hey, now you're an adult, right? But we know that that's not accurate. We know that there's a big difference between a child, somebody who's like kindergarten up till like 10 years old, 11 years old, right? And then all of a sudden, some things start happening. Some things start changing. Your body starts developing. Your brain starts developing differently. And so psychologists now use this term adolescence to help us understand that there's a transition from one place to the next. So why do we have student ministry? It's because you're different. Like, you respond to your world different. You begin to be more rebellious in this season of adolescence. And now maybe where your parents were your main source of teaching, education, spiritual development, now maybe you're like, I don't really want mom and dad around, right? Like, I want to encourage you, your mom and dad are still there for you, love you, want to teach you, help you grow, but you as an adolescent are starting to go, hey, where else can I find information? Where else can I get things for my life to be able to learn and grow and develop? And so we give you this space to be able to be an adolescent, to be able to ask the questions, to be able to grow from a child to an adult. But we also understand that there's this big word that we say a lot in the church world. You've heard me say it multiple times tonight, is this idea of community. Like, we need to be in community. We design what we do for you to be able to experience community. Now, here's the problem, right? We have 28 different schools represented by the people that come to this student ministry, right? There are a lot of you who look around the room and go, I don't go to school on a regular basis with any of these people. You know, some of you are like, I'm the only person from my school. Some of you are like, hey, I'm homeschooled. Like, I'm definitely the only person from my school here. Like, there are lots of you who don't live in community daily with each other. And so when you come in, you get to be a part of a new community, a community that's made up of this conglomeration of people from all different backgrounds, all different schools, all different histories in their faith. There's another psychologist, Dr. Craig Salchuk. Everybody say Salchuk. He says this: we are social animals by nature, so we tend to function better when we're in a community and being around others. Like, you are psychologically better when you're in community. Now, we all experience that different, right? Some of you want to be in community with the big group. Like, you want the 20 people, like, yeah, let's do this. And some of you are like, no, I want the small, intimate group. I want the 3 people who are there for me, who are walking and living life. And both of those are good. Both of those are needed when it comes to your psychological development. You need to be in community. You are better in community. Now, a lot of you get that community in different ways. You're part of a sports team, part of a band, you're part of an organization, a volleyball team, whatever that may be. You get community there. But when we talk about the church, we knew that Jesus grew in favor with God and his community. And so we want to be in community with everybody. And I want you to hear this last word that we're going to talk about is the idea of an environment. We say that a lot, that there is an environment when it comes to what we're trying to create. And so what I say a lot is we want to create an environment where it is safe to talk about anything. We talk about that on small groups for Sunday nights, that is a safe place to talk about anything. And I know that a lot of times that's hard, like to sit and be able to process those things together. Like right now, we know that one of the big things that's going on in our world, and a lot of you and a lot of your parents have differing views on it, is what's going on in Afghanistan. And that's a real thing that's happening in our world. And we, in what we do as a student ministry, is we want to create an environment that allows you to be able to have a safe place to go, hey, I want to talk about this. I want to process my feelings and my emotions. Why? Because it's important for us to grow in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God and man. And that's what ultimately, when I ask that question, why do we have student ministry? My ultimate goal is for you to grow in wisdom and in stature. To grow in a place where you are getting big brain like Piper. You are growing up as we continue to live year after year and season after season. You get bigger, stronger, taller, all those things. But my goal for you, being a part and engaged in the student ministry, is for you to be like Jesus, to grow in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God and man. And so when someone goes, when you are talking to them next week and you're like, hey, I want you to come to this thing with me. I want you to come to my church with me on Wednesday night. And they're like, hey, why would I do that? Like, what's so important about it? That's what I want you to be able to say. Those 4 things. Is that when we get together, we're being like Jesus because we want to grow in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God and man.